Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Studio 78 podcast. I am your host, Nache Snow from NacheSnow.com. That's NacheSnow.com. Thank you for joining me for another episode. If you haven't already, please sign up for the newsletter at NacheSnow.com/newsletter. I just sent out something this past Friday, actually on my birthday, another year older, which I'm excited about because, as my mom always says, if you're not getting older, then you're not alive. So, so I want to get older. But anywho, be sure to sign up for that. And also, FYI, I have a new video on YouTube. So if you go over to YouTube and just type in my name, my channel will come right up. And I show you guys how I use over to sometimes create graphics for social media. So if you're into that type of thing, please head over to my YouTube account. And like I said, just type Nache Snow, or you can do a shortcut, which is NacheSnow.com/YouTube. Okay, so let's get into today's episode. When I was planning out my podcast last fall, one of the people I put on there was my cousin Naya. And I really wanted her to come on to talk about her and her son, Jerry. Because Jerry, at the age of 2.5, was diagnosed with having autism, in particular PPD-NOS, which is pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified. And so I asked her just to come on and share her story because I wanted to make sure I had it for National Autism Awareness Month, which is now, because I do think it's really important. And as she talks about in this episode, it's really important for people to know about it early. And so, no matter if, you have a child that is autistic or isn't autistic, or if you know someone or don't know someone, I think this episode is still a very powerful episode to listen to because she kind of opens up about just that discovery, like finding out, that your child is autistic. And what do you do? How do you support that child? How do you now plan the future out for that child? She now also has a daughter, and planning out the futures for different children. For your different children that might have, slightly different futures, and how you do that. She goes into her support system. So it's really just I think, a magnificent story of like how, at first, you might hear something that, you're like, really? Like, okay, what do I do? I don't even know where to go from here, to just like doing your thing and just learning and growing every day. And, where most people or some people might kind of break down, like, I don't know what to do. She just kept on doing what she needed to do, finding out more information, becoming kind of like an advocate for autism, and sharing everything she can with family and friends. So, anyway, let me stop babbling on. I just think this is a great episode, and I just want to thank her again for coming on and sharing her story. Here we go. All right, guys, I have a special guest on today. It's actually blood, my cousin, Naya. Welcome, Naya. Thanks for coming on to the Studio 78 podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Can you just tell the folks out there that don't know you like I know you, just a little bit about you and your background?
My name is Naya Bates, and as Nache said, we are blood. She is my cousin. The reason that we're talking today is I am a mom of two. I have a 8-year-old, Jerry, and I have a 2-year-old. And my 8-year-old, Jerry, was diagnosed with autism at 2.5 years old. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and as I was putting together my list for this year of people that I wanted to interview, I wanted a mix of people who are starting their own businesses, people who had side hustles and worked 9 to 5. But then I just wanted to get into less like some real life stories. So National Autism Awareness
Hmm.
Month is coming up. So I know that even when I, see you on Facebook, like usually you share like really insightful posts and you try to make sure that people kind of understand like what this is about. And even I think posts like that will help people who don't realize that their children might be autistic, may
Hmm.
have autism. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about like, start from the beginning about how you first discovered it and then kind of what you've learned along the way.
Around 1 years old, Jeremiah was not talking. He was not saying any words, and I was really concerned with that. And I spoke with his doctor. I was a first time mom. I was a single mom at the time, and so it was like everything was new to me. I was finishing my master's degree at that time, and so I went to his doctor. His 1 year will visit, and I'm like, he's not saying anything. And I just want to know, I had a friend who had a baby, and her baby was starting to say mommy and daddy and things like that. And he wasn't talking. And the doctor told me, oh, you just need to read to him more. I'm like, okay. And so, and then he told me stop comparing my child to other children. So I'm just like, okay. And you take the word of these professionals, and I'm like, maybe I'm overthinking it. And because I am a worrier, I worry about everything. I try not to. I've learned to
Hmm.
let things go, but I am over analytical. So I'm like, okay, Jeremiah, we got to start reading every night, So we are going along at the same time. There was just a lot going on in my life. Like I mentioned, I was in school. My father had recently passed, and I was moving from Chicago to Florida. So
Hmm.
I think I, I, even though it was always in the back of my mind, like I think he's not meeting this milestone. And up until that point, I had been watching the milestones, everything that he should be meeting, and he was doing that. But as far as communication, he just was not. There were no words. And then at some point within between 1 and 2, he started saying thank you. That was the first word, and I think he got that because every time I would take something from him, he would say, I would say, thank you. And so he would just repeat that. And so I'm like, okay, he's talking.
Right.
But by the time he was 2 years old, that was it. That was the all of the communication that he had.
Mm.
So for his 2 year old well visit, we're now in Florida. We're no longer in Chicago. They're new doctors. I told the doctors my concerns, and
Mm.
she was the first one to say, I think you should schedule a visit with Early Steps, which is
Mm.
Florida's program for it's an early intervention program for all types of disorders. So
Mm.
that was like shortly after he was 2. We started with Early Steps, and they pointed out some things that I didn't even notice, like um, he didn't make good eye contact, or he didn't sustain eye contact. Uh,
Mm.
he I was the main thing I was worried about was communication. He wasn't talking, but other things like he was very the way he played with his toys um, was different. It wasn't typical of
Mm.
what children his age would do. He liked to line things up like in
Mm.
perfect rows. He would line things up. And I'm just like, my kid is neat. That's all. There's
Right, right, right.
nothing wrong with that. But that was the first time that I started thinking he may have autism. But that wasn't when he was diagnosed. There was a series of appointments. There are a series of different professionals. We had to go to a hearing specialist, pediatric neurologist, different therapists. And then by the time he was 2.5, he was diagnosed with PDD, PDD-NOS, which
Mm.
is pervasive developmental disorder,
Mm-hmm.
not otherwise specified, which is an
Oh.
autism spectrum disorder. Well, autism is a spectrum. There's different disorders on the spectrum. And at that time, the doctor told me, I don't think it's full blown autism, but he has a developmental delay.
Mm.
So that was 2.5. And at the time, like I said, I was a single mom at the time. And I never thought I never thought being a mom would be easy, but
Mm-hmm.
I thought I had it. And
Right.
I, I've just always been a super independent person. I believed anything I put my mind to, I was able to do. And I think at that point, it just kind of broke me down because when
Mm.
you put your hopes, you have all these hopes and for your child,
Mm-hmm.
and it just throws you on a different course. So I
Mm-hmm.
think, like you mentioned, like all the things I put online, like Facebook and posting articles, that's me learning and me sharing
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't know anyone else who had dealt with this at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the last 6 years has been, it's a learning process.
Just in case there are people out there that don't know what autism is so that's kind of like let me know if I'm explaining it right, but usually people who are diagnosed with autism like have trouble communicating, and then they just react to things like a little bit differently, like the toy example that you mentioned, right? Like lining
Yeah.
things up, or maybe certain smells or sounds bother them. Is that Would that be accurate, like an accurate definition?
Well, it's a piece of it. Autism is a neurological condition where it has many different forms that fall on a spectrum. And it can, they say, if you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism because it will show up in all different types of ways. It could be sensitivity to, like you said, sounds and lights, which Jeremiah doesn't have that much of, but it can also be sensitivity to touch. Um, Jeremiah's, where it manifests in him, is communication and social skills. He's not able to communicate verbally that well.
Mm.
And then he is definitely not a social person. He doesn't really need to be around people. He would prefer a tablet or computer to people most of the
Mhm.
time. So it shows up in different ways. So yes, you did describe it correctly, but it can be completely different from what you see in one person to another, and it's just different scales.
And so you find this out, right? I mean, because I just could only, well, I really can't imagine, right? Because I don't have kids, but,
You got your fur baby.
exactly, that's true. That's true. But I assume, like you said, like it's very overwhelming. So at this point, you're in Florida, you're working, you discover this, like, what were kind of like your next steps? Like, continue to go to the doctors? Did you end up having to enroll him in any programs or do anything different at home to help him?
Oh, definitely. So, Florida, and I think it's each state has programs like this, but Florida has a early intervention program. So, up until age 3, he was eligible to get therapy for free, in-home therapy. So he would see a therapist at home for
Mm.
occupational and speech therapy. I believe it was like twice a week, once or twice a week. And then at 3, because he is diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, he was able to start school.
Mm.
So like that was hard too, because I'm putting my 3-year-old on a school bus to go to school every day. And I'm just like, he can't talk, he can't tell me if something's wrong. But he
Oh
started
yeah.
pre-K at 3 years old. And at that point, at 3, he was, because he started public school, he was no longer able to get the therapy for free. So I also out of pocket paid for speech therapy outside of school. He's been in occupational. That's the other thing. I was dating my husband when Jeremiah was diagnosed. So by the time he was in school and I was having to pay for therapies and just additional help for him, we were a 2 income family. I can't imagine. And I know people do it. They have to do it, like doing it by myself at this point. Like I said, I've always been extremely independent person, but I don't know how I would go through this journey without my husband, without my mom. Like I still need my mom because I have a child whose communication is not great. If anything goes wrong, he's not able to tell me. So it was hard. I didn't want to put him into after school care, and I have to go to work every day. So that's where my mom came in, and my mom would
Mm.
get him. And that way I know he's being taken care of. And these are things when I found out that I was going to be a mother, I did not think about, because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
he could go to daycare, parents of
Yeah.
children with autism, you can't just go get a babysitter because
Right.
Jeremiah is not going for it. It's just it's it is truly a journey that I did not expect. It's not
Mm-hmm.
easy, but I wouldn't change it because I love my son, and what he is and the progress that he makes is just makes me more and more proud of him every day.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm shocked. So I guess like the health insurance that do they it doesn't cover the cost of therapy.
Okay, so this is why we vote. So
Right.
it depends. So it depends on the insurance. It depends on state mandates. And no, not all insurance. Now I am very fortunate that my husband's insurance covers 100% ABA therapy, which is
Oh.
what is ABA? Applied behavioral analysis, which is the where Jeremiah has made the most progress.
Mm.
But I've always had insurance, which is great. So I've always had a portion covered, but no, it doesn't cover everything. I couldn't imagine not having insurance because the two I would say most important things is early detection in autism. Like that doctor, I'm not going to blame people. But
Right.
when he was 1 year old, when when I brought a concern, who could have, I understand he probably didn't want me to get alarmed, but
Mm-hmm.
the earlier you detect it, the better. And then intervention, getting into therapy and getting these children the help that they need, the assistance that they need, so they can go out into this world and be productive is the most important things. So yeah, without insurance, I couldn't do it. But no, insurance definitely doesn't. Well, now I have great. My husband has great insurance, and it covers it. But I couldn't do it. And the same thing, I have health insurance through my job that does not cover ABA therapy at all. So it
Mm.
really just depends on the insurance company and what states mandate.
Oh, that's crazy. Because I can only imagine how expensive it is.
Oh, it is.
You know? I mean, because think about it too. Like, like you mentioned, like luckily his insurance covers it. You know, your mom helps out too. But just imagine if you didn't have any of that. Let's say if, you know, you're working from someplace and you barely have any decent insurance at all, you're a single mom and you're dealing with this, then potentially, you know, this child might not be able to get any help at all because the mom can't afford it. You
That is
know,
very
that's kind of
true. I can't
scary.
imagine. It is. It is. And
Or
it just seems
yeah.
unfair.
Yeah. Or somebody having to lose their job, right? Because if you're a single mom, you have a child with autism, and maybe you need a babysitter, but you can't just get a babysitter, right? Like
No.
so it's like, what do you do then? You know, what if you don't have that type of help and assistance? It could be pretty scary, even though I'm sure there are cases where people figure out a way and they make it through for their child. But yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So with the early detection, what are some of the things, and I don't know if this, you know, maybe you could even think of something specific, but did you notice specific things that started to change in his behavior, you know, because he was in this therapy? Like, did he start speaking more words,
Definitely.
or did he start interacting with people a little bit more?
Communication is like our biggest hurdle. We're still working on it, but I had a child that was nonverbal completely or almost completely to about age 4. I didn't hear mommy until he was about 4 years old. And that's still he does talk now, but it's low. But like I said, Jeremiah was my first child, and some things I didn't know were not normal.
Mm,
When he was 1 and 2, he would have meltdowns, and I thought it was the same as any kid that has temper tantrums. But Jeremiah's meltdowns would last 45 minutes to an hour of him screaming and not being able to be calmed down. You could give him whatever started the meltdown, and that didn't work. That was the biggest change, learning how to deal with his meltdowns, and they got fewer and farther between each other with therapy. And now we don't have that because I've also
mm,
volunteered in his classroom, and I substitute taught for a little while in special needs classrooms. And they there are children that are older than Jeremiah, as old as Jeremiah, who still have these meltdowns. And Jeremiah still, he has his moments, but they aren't as bad as they used to be. But
mm.
yes, he is making progress in talking, and he's making progress in school as far as like his schoolwork, socially. And that's another one that is a big one for Jer. He now plays at recess. Like for the longest
Mm.
time, I would talk to his teachers, and basically he just wanted to stand around the adults and look at the other kids playing. But now he likes to play tag, and he has become he's still he's a loner, but he's become more social, I would say. Yes, he has. But
Mm.
it's slow. It's slow, and it's just like everybody has their miracle story, and it's like that's great to hear. That's great. That's great that that happened for you or your friend of a friend. And it's not that I will never lose hope for Jerry. But I, I think everybody is just running their own race, and it took me a while. It was like I'm doing all this stuff for him. Where is the progress? And it's there. It's just you have to look harder to see it. It's slow, but he's making it. But as long as he's moving in the right direction, it makes me happy.
You know what'll be interesting too, as Joy gets older and she starts to talk more, I wonder if that'll have any influence on him.
Maybe. I don't know. He doesn't really care what Joey does. It's weird because Joy just turned 2 in January. And I just can remember Jerry being 2 and he still really wasn't saying anything. And Joy has mommy and daddy. She can count to 5. She knows her colors. And it's just like, it's just, I know that every child is different, but it's just a different experience with the
Mhm.
2 of them. But I thought the same thing, like, because I had my nephews come down. So Jeremiah's cousins would come down. I'm like, if he's around them and they're talking, and Jeremiah will be like, okay, they're talking. I'm going to go in my room and close the door. I don't feel like being bothered.
She's like,
So,
this is too much.
yeah, pretty
Like,
much.
why are they here?
Yeah. I think after the first couple of weeks of Joy coming home, he was like, can't we take this baby and put her somewhere else? Like, she's not supposed to be here.
Right, like, wait a
So
minute, she's staying?
pretty much where she comes from.
Right.
But it's definitely a different experience raising a neurotypical kid. I mean, I have like concerns and hopes for Joy as well, but it's just so different.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's like neurotypical kid. Look, you sound all like scientist like. Yeah, I know. And I guess it's like what's interesting too is it's like planning their futures will be different too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I guess that's for any kid, it doesn't matter, but it's just still it's like a different thinking about their future plans a little bit differently.
Yeah, it's definitely a concern, one that me and my husband talk about, because there is a possibility that Jeremiah will never be able to earn a salary and support. Well, he may never be able to fully support himself. That is a possibility. Like I said, we never lose hope, but it's a
Mhm.
possibility. So, and you can't depend on just Social Security or the government taking care of them. So there's definitely some planning that has to go on there. And then, like, having a second child, and I'm not having any more. You don't want you don't want that responsibility to fall on the other child either. I don't want Joy to feel like, as an adult, like she has to take care of her brother. If she chooses to and she wants to help out once we're no longer here, that's great. But
Mm,
we have to plan just so we make sure that he's taken care of no matter what, whether we're here or not. But
mm.
yeah, it's scary.
Yeah.
It's like I have to live forever, but that's not
Right,
possible.
right, right. So question, like during all this time, like how did you take care of yourself?
Oh my gosh. I try to take care of myself. I try to take time for myself. It's become much, much harder now that I have a second child, and as she gets older, I may get more time for myself. I, how do I take care of myself? I try to I try to get away from it. Whether that is going to Starbucks with a book, and just taking a moment for just me, like a moment alone, or going for a long walk, making sure that me and my husband have date nights and we get
Mm.
away from it all, because it can it's just taxing on both of us. But just taking that alone time, like I said, now that they're 2, it's much harder. But
Mhm.
I just think it's important. It's important for me, and I have to remind myself, if I don't take care of me, then I can't take care of them. My mental health and physical health are important, and so I've been trying to do that more often. Just take time for myself, just to do anything. Whether I love to read, so take some time to go somewhere and read. It has to be out of the house because they won't let me do anything in this house.
They're
It's very
like
hard. um, and children with autism also have issues with sleep. So Jeremiah will be up to 1 a.m. sometimes, like
oh
just
wow.
yeah, just doing him and me trying to make him go to sleep. So just taking time away from it all. That's That's how I
Mm.
take care of myself.
No, that's good. That's important. I'm glad you're doing that because I think sometimes people forget to do that. They don't have any hobbies, be it reading, crafting, whatever it is. And then that's when they, completely get stressed out because they never just take time to breathe, right? Even if it's just like an hour a day.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's never an hour a day, maybe an hour a week. That's right. You don't have kids.
Right. Oh.
I wish. I'm lucky for 10 minutes. I don't get to use the bathroom by myself now that I have this 2-year-old. So, yeah, but like once a week, and like I have just adult time too. I have a few friends down here, that just to get away and have some adult time and just trying to remember that I am a mom, but I am more than that. I was a person before I had these children, and just remembering that person.
Yeah. And then question like, as far as like how does travel look for you? Like is it difficult for you to travel or go like to the
Yeah.
movies or anything like that? Like is that
Do you mean with the children or
with
with?
Jerry? Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
with Jerry and Joy.
oh my goodness. So, O'Hare Airport in the security line. This was probably about 2 or 3 years ago. The Chicago airport. We were just visiting home. O'Hare is just crazy.
It's crazy
But
pants.
Jeremiah decided he was done with the line and decided to fall out in the
Oh.
line, just crying and screaming. And it's just like, okay, this is a really long line, and there are a lot of people behind me. Do I get out, or do I like try to scoot him along as he's screaming and trying to? Yeah, it's not easy. It's become easier. Like I said, everything gets easier. Now Jeremiah loves to travel. He loves to get on an airplane. So it's become easier. When he was younger, he also had a wandering issue, which is also a big thing with kids with autism, where like I basically had to hold on to him because he would try to just get away and just go.
Mm,
And that is like the scariest thing when you're in like a crowded airport. But
mm.
like now, I would say like the last few years with traveling, he's good. Long as he has his iPad, he's good.
Right.
He can watch his videos and play his games on the iPad, and he's fine. But now it's a toddler, and it's Joy, so I'm the person with the screaming baby on the plane. So,
But it's so funny. It's like, where were we without iPads? But,
oh my
I
goodness.
think this is a good lesson for people because I think, like, sometimes when people see a situation, they automatically make assumptions about that mom and her child or her
Oh,
children when they don't know what's going on.
yeah,
So it's like as people we're so quick to judge, and
yeah,
we have no clue, so it's
yeah.
like a lesson to anyone listening out there that has ever done that. Like you're not in that person's shoes, so just
That
keep
is
it
very
moving.
true. Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Like I had someone once offer help, and it's like, no, I don't need help, but it was just so nice that somebody like, because like I said, the meltdowns now, they're extremely rare. But when Jeremiah was younger, like anything could set him off. It could just, and sometimes I would not know what would set him off, and it would be screaming and crying, and he would try to self-injure, like knock his head on the ground or something. And it's just like I need to just hold him and let him scream and get it out. And it's like, I'm in public, and it's like
Right,
I'm not the
right.
type of person. I don't want to be the center of attention, and especially not the center of this type of attention.
Right.
So like for a person just to be like, "Do you need help? Do anything?" I think that person, like, she grabbed my purse and put it back next to me because he probably kicked it a way across the room. But just like, yeah, don't judge. It's not
Yeah.
good. You never know what's going on.
And then, I wanted to know too, like, do you have, because, who knows who's listening, but a listener out there, right? But a listener out there could be a new mom that is just discovering that her child has autism, and which might be devastating for her. Like, oh my God, I can't
Yeah.
believe it. I did everything right. I ate right. I worked out. I this and
Oh
that.
yeah.
I feel like people kind of go through this, like phase. Like, do you have any advice for somebody who is like just discovering that like their child is autistic?
If you're just discovering your child has autism, I would just say it gets better. I would say find your community. It's important for me. It's mostly online, but finding people who are going through the same thing, and because it can be so alienating,
Mm.
especially if you don't know anyone. I would just say it gets better. Read everything you can. Don't believe everything you read. Um, um, but it's just find your community, find your support system, find those people who may not know about autism but know you and love your child who will help you through. Because, like I said, I was super like I can do it all, and I couldn't. I don't know how I could have done it without my husband and my mom. Because it's a struggle, but I would just say you can do it and it does get better.
Mm. And I like that advice too about finding like your community, your tribe, and
So,
it's like it depends on what kind of person you are. So it could be in person, like maybe
yeah,
there are like local groups, or it could be online. Like it's like whatever works for you, but it's just like find somebody to talk to, like a group of
exactly.
people who understand what you're going through.
That's
Yeah.
so true.
So I'll just wrap up here, and I am just curious. Usually I have like a wrap up question about like, and this is going to be like totally random because it has like really nothing to do with our conversation. But have you discovered your passion?
So I knew that this was coming. Um, I would say my passion right now is my family, my kids.
Hmm.
That's what keeps me going every day. When I don't feel like going to work, I know I have to. Um, and they make me they make me so happy. As much as I complain about the both of them, um, I, they make me happy. I think that I have had many passions in life. It changes. I haven't found as far as work and like I like my job. If anybody's listening from there,
Right. But
I
that's
like
the
it a lot.
thing. You can like your job, but that might not be like your
No,
passion,
I
right?
work in
Yeah.
human resources. Human resources is not my passion.
Right,
Um,
exactly.
but I like my passion changes. Sometimes it's like I get into cooking. I have health kicks. So I think I'm passionate about life. I love life, but like my biggest passion is my family.
Mm. And then what is one thing, you can't live without? It could be anything like, a product, a type of food. I mean, just anything and everything, but
Well,
something
we
you're like,
mentioned its cousin. It's my iPhone. Like without Apple products, I don't think I could make it. Uh, I've we have iMac, iPhone, Apple Watch, and it's a bit much. But my iPhone, most of all, it's everything. I get my news. We were talking about podcasts before we
mm,
started. I listen to my podcasts at work. It's how I communicate. My iPhone. It's also it's just it's good to me. It's my phone. It's everything to me. I'm constantly. My mom's like, "You're always losing your phone." I was like, "No, I just always need my phone. It's not like it's never too far." I'm always like, "Where's my phone? Where's my phone?" Um,
right.
but yeah,
I know it's so weird because it's like think about like your children will they only know life with a phone. Whereas when we
Mhm.
grew up, we had
Oh,
payphones and
exactly.
landlines. Like, that was it. Maybe the start of the flip phone, but that was it. Like, it's kind of
And
crazy.
and just to add on that, Jerry has had an iPad and an iPod, and then they have great apps,
Ooh,
wonderful apps
yes.
in the App Store. I think Vizzle is a learning app for kids with developmental disorders. He also had a communication app, which would help him talk, where he could make sentences on the app. I don't remember the name of that one, but there are just, and you could just go to a website like Autism Speaks and look for apps on the iPad for children with autism. There are all types of apps that have helped us out so much. So yes, I love my Apple products, mostly my iPhone.
Well, Naya, thank you. I appreciate you kind of like opening up and kind of talking about this, and I know someone out there is listening to this and it will either help them understand, like especially if they're just finding out, or if it's somebody who is like, at the 8 year mark, they're like, oh my God, I totally get everything she just said. So it's like someone who can relate. So I really do appreciate you like coming on and talking about this.
No problem.
All right. I just want to say thank you again to Naya for coming on. I really appreciate you opening up and sharing your story to kind of help others that might be going through the same thing, or to just give people kind of a better understanding of what life is like when raising an autistic child, and how it's somewhat, yeah, different but no different than raising a neurotypical child. Like, I've learned a new term today, because and why I say it's kind of the same is because no matter what, your child just needs your love and support. And if they have that, then things tend to kind of work themselves out even through the challenging times. So, thank you, Naya, for kind of this message of like hope and love. And also, people just remember, like, when you're out in the streets, when you're in a um, mall, or you're in, a bathroom or in an airport or whatever, and you see a situation with a child, don't always jump to like the conclusion that mom doesn't have control or this or that, because you really don't know what's going on. And so it's like, just kind of mind your business or help, right? Because you don't know what's going on. I think that is really important, and I always keep that in mind if I'm on a plane or whatever, that I don't know what's going on. So all I could do is really just hope for the best, and, hope that whatever situation is going on gets resolved. But anyway, also, she kind of mentions that, like, what's really important too for someone who's raising a child with autism is to find that support system. So, that could be family and friends. It also can mean an outside kind of like support group of people that you don't know but are going through um, the same thing you are, and trying to understand autism a little bit better. Like having other people that can relate to your situation that you could talk to is like super key. You guys know I'm like really big, especially into communities and having, your tribe. So, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you know anyone that could benefit from this episode, please share it. Or if you just want to kind of spread the message of like, hey, this is Autism Awareness Month, and just kind of like be aware of certain things and have certain sensitivities, please share. I'd love for more people to hear Naya's story. Anyway, I that's all I've got, folks. Be sure to head over to iTunes if you haven't already to give me a rating. I'd really appreciate it. Or, I say iTunes, but if you're using your phone, you just go over to your podcast app Just do a search podcast, it'll come right up. And if you could leave me a 5-star rating, I would super duper really, really appreciate it. And we'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode. So please comment on the article itself or comment on any of the social media graphics and links that go out. All right. Well, have an amazing morning, noon, and night. Take care.